Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sara.
I'm Helen.
And Allie's not here right now. We've got Sara and Helen back together again.
I love how you say hello. I've missed it. I've only ever been able to listen to it as a listener of the show. But I love it like, hello, everybody.
Hello,
it's great.
everybody.
I'm into it.
Thank you very much. We had an incredible weekend of football. And mainly you and me are going to try not to argue too much over the course of this episode. But also, if we do, it'll be okay. All right, so there were so many games that we could talk about, but we're going to do the primary two, which I feel like are Chelsea-Arsenal and then the Manchester Derby. I'm sorry, I really never know.
Still, we've been working on this word for the last year and a half.
I do know that it's spelled with an E, but I still get confused about the pronunciation.
We're working on it, guys. I'm so sorry to the listeners out there. We're working on it.
Will you please tell me what it is? You're apologizing to them, but Derby. Let's kick it off. Chelsea versus Arsenal. This was a battle for the number one spot. Obviously, Chelsea has a game in hand, so we don't need to get into the points. We're just going to get right into what everybody wants to talk about. Was it a handball? Should it have been called a penalty?
So for me, the factors that make something a penalty are the distance in which the player is away from the person and how far away the arm is from the body. And for me, it was like 1.5 meters. Leah had enough time to put her hands behind her back and her arm was out. It's unfortunate because, you know, it's difficult when you're jumping and I get it, but it's a handball for me.
It simply wasn't. When you're getting into like first of all, for everybody who didn't see the game, it ended in a 0-0 draw, and this was really towards the end of the match. I think within the last 10 minutes of the game.
Few minutes, yeah.
Within the last few minutes of the game, and Leah Williamson went to jumped, leaped to the side to block a cross. If you think that you can leap to the side with control of your arms behind your back, Helen, I think you should get up and show me that right now.
Well, you shouldn't be leaping to the side then. If you're not, it's what you're supposed to do.
In that aside, like, we've had so many conversations about referees and how just inconsistent they've been. But for me, part of being a good referee is understanding situations and knowing that this was a 0-0 game. That handball was way off to the side by the end line. It's not like that was a shot on goal. That was way off to the side by the end line, and it accidentally hit her arm as she was leaping to the side. In my mind, situationally, I'm a referee. I am not deciding this 0-0 game in the last few minutes on that.
I mean, it's difficult because the penalty area is the penalty area. Firstly, just to reiterate, it wasn't just in the last few minutes, it was in the 94th minute that it happened. So yeah, it was so deep into the dying embers of the game. But the reality is, had VAR existed, they would have called the referee to have a look at that. And I just, whether I agree with you or not on the rules of football, they are there. Like, there was the famous one that I remember was when Juventus got a handball and the player wasn't even facing the same way. They were looking literally in the 90 degrees in the opposite direction, and it hit their arm and they were like, oh, the ball's hit me on the arm. These situations happen all the time. It doesn't matter where you are in the box. Just like if you did a slide tackle as the ball's going out of play and you take the player and the ball's going out of play anyway, it's still a penalty. You're inside the box. The fact is, she wasn't close enough for her to be, for it to be an error. She was far enough away, and it was a cross across the box. She wasn't shooting, she was crossing it across the box, so the pace and the ball was slow enough for Leah to be able to move herself out of the way.
See, for me, when you're getting into the technicalities of like, oh, but if she'd been a meter closer, or like the cross wasn't a shot, so it's going like 5 miles an hour slower. First of all, that ball's still going really. This is my problem with VAR. When you slow anything down, you could be like, oh yeah, you have time to get it. You have time to get out of the way. You do not have time to get out of the way of that. And when you're leaping with your arms, your hands go up. Maybe I just have a problem with this type of rule in soccer, but for me, it should not have been a penalty. It was a correct no call, in my opinion. I will also be the first to be a bigger person and say, I know I was rooting for Arsenal, so potentially I'm a little biased here.
Maybe.
Just a little. Let's get into the game a little bit, though. This was a fantastic back and forth, open game. So I remember saying at halftime, there is no way this game ends 0-0. Like, I thought that this was going to be 2-2, 3-3 by the end of the second half. That's how open it really was. And both teams played fantastic. So let's get into it with Chelsea. Helen, what did you see? What stood out for Chelsea? What did they do well?
Carter was brilliant, played forward really well. She's one of those defenders that's really good at shutting play down, and she's, for me, a really underrated player. And remembering this season as well for Chelsea, she's really had to step up and step in because they have had problems with their back line as a club, both through injury and also just not getting the players that they wanted in the summer. So when it's come to, this period now after the January transfer window, you're thinking, well, obviously Emma Hayes is happy because she's bringing in these players that maybe were being given a chance as a result of the issues in the summer, and she's really sort of proved herself. Just to sort of reiterate what you were saying, there were people saying after the game, I just think shows how amazing it was. It's one of the games of the season, and it's a 0-0. It was one of the
Yeah.
games of the season, and it was a 0-0. But it's just cagey, physical. I think that the back
Good
line
soccer on
and
both
the
sides.
defense. Yeah, I love good defenses. I love really defensive football where it's you see the sort of tactical nuances of each of the teams, and that's what we saw. It was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Carter really needs to get a little bit more credit. I know she's playing among superstars on Chelsea, but like you said, at the beginning of the season, she was playing center back when Millie Bright got moved to the outside and they were playing in a 3-back formation. Like, she is a shutdown defender, and we'll talk about it later, but potentially deserves a call up to the senior squad.
Lenglan,
Hint, a hint, hint.
Langlaise. What did you make of Arsenal's performance? What did you make of your girl Viv?
First of all, I was really pleasantly surprised when I saw how Arsenal came out. I was staring at the TV. I missed the lineups when they first came on. So I was staring at the TV for the first 10 minutes trying to figure out what formation Arsenal was in because I was like, this is different. It's hard sometimes when they're all moving around. Arsenal came out, they switched to a 4-2-3-1. And I really think this came on the back of their previous game when Vivian Miedema played the most gorgeous assist ever to Blackstenius. And I think through that, they were just like, we need to get the ball at Viv's feet a lot more. So they came out in a 4-2-3-1 and they put Viv at basically that number 10. So they had 3 attacking midfielders. They put Viv at the 10. They had Ford and Mead flanking her, and they put Blackstenius as the 9. And the way that worked out was beautiful. They were able to split lines. Vivian Miedema already has a talent for being able to split lines, and she was just able to find that gap in between the forward and the midfield so much more easily because that's where she was naturally supposed to be as the 10. And with that, the ball was at her feet all the time. She was turning, she was dribbling, she was playing feet and assists and making plays. I really hope that this is a type of lineup that we get to see more. The only bummer for me is that it's harder to put Tobin Heath in the lineup, and I just want to see Tobes.
And the other thing, I think that it's a good problem to have, but by playing Miedema rightfully, might I add, in that position, it means you're taking Kim Little, who has arguably been the star player for Arsenal this season, out of that preferred position, that number 10 role, where Kim Little just works wonders. But both players are super versatile. I'm not going to lie, I didn't think Viv was super versatile until I've seen this change happen. I thought she was an out and out. That's where she would play up front. But it just shows A, her willingness, and B, her ability. And on that, the other thing about Miedema is we've all heard the rumours, Miedema's leaving, Miedema's out. But since then, I've heard other rumours that she's really pleased with the Stina Blackstenius signing. She thinks it's a work of art that they brought, these two players together. They work really well together, and that potentially she can see now how there's other players holding Arsenal together. It's not just all on her, and I think that that's a good thing for someone like Viv. I think it gives her then the flexibility to really be her true self, be able to sort of not put the world on your shoulders, essentially. Like, the only way they were going to ever win anything would be through Viv. And now they've got Stina, they've got Tobin, as you mentioned, Kim Little's come into her own. Leah Williamson, without Leah Williamson, Arsenal have dropped points. They've not dropped points with Leah Williamson in that side. So, these are all players now that are contributing towards a team that could take on Barcelona.
I think that we saw that in Viv's demeanor. Like, I was watching her play, and I think it's a combination of that and the fact that putting her at the 10 allows her to be more involved and more actively involved in every single play. She was working harder on defense than I've ever seen her work. She was actively involved, and she didn't have that same kind of like blasé attitude that we've seen a little bit. Kim Little was freed up to play like box to box, and I just have to shout out because they've gotten a lot of crap for it throughout the entire season about how Arsenal's backline isn't as strong. They shut down the hardest front line in the league to shut down, and I think that deserves some props.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
All right. We're moving on from Chelsea Arsenal into the Manchester Derby. You were at this game. Let me ask you a question here, and you can answer politically if you're not allowed to say, like, for real. But if you are doing commentary for United, how do you feel in your soul when you want City to win, but you're doing commentary for United?
Can I be honest now? Selfishly, I want Manchester United to do well because then it gets me more jobs.
Oh, I thought you were going to say just like when you get invested in a team and you get to know them.
No,
Helen's like, no, just give me the cash. Just give me the cash.
No,
give me the money.
I love working on Manchester United. I have grown really fond of the squad and even of like Mark Skinner's like amateur dramatics. I'm like really into it, and they're really fun to work on in terms of the fixtures. And so yesterday, the main thing I was hoping for was an amazing game of football. And the outcome really, I genuinely was indifferent about, because if Manchester United won and they get Champions League football next season, I might be going to some really fun places. And if Manchester City win, then it's like great for, the proportion of the England squad. It's great for players that I really have admired for a long time. And I do love everything that City's about on a personal level. City like reached out to my football club, offered us tickets, they like give you free food and drink, and the way that they treat women's football is so like they treat it so seriously. I think it's hard. I'd find it really difficult because I was a Manchester United fan, because down the road from you've got this club that like are really investing. They had DJs at the opening with fog machines. They had murals that they'd done. It was amazing.
Listen, everybody, if you want to get Helen on your side, throw a party, give her some free food, free drink, fog machine.
Thank you. That's the most important part.
And just let her be.
Every seat had a flag on it, and like when you were in there and the build-up was happening, versus I did the Conti Cup earlier in the season, the one that Man United won at Leigh Sports Village. The setup was great and they still sold out and the fans were amazing, but Manchester City just sort of plied the fans with all these amazing things that just really built up like a vibe. So there was the DJ and there was the free food and drink and all the bits. It was just
it
really
matters.
It was massive. It felt massive, and it
hopefully
was the
United
energy
gets there.
built.
Yeah, hopefully United gets there. We forget that this is their third season ever in the top league in the WSL. So I mean, you see photos, you see Borisa, on the same stadium with the men's players. So they're working there, hopefully, but they haven't given you free food and drink, clearly.
No, it's not good enough. I only get a biscuit before the game. Not happy.
Does that mean a cookie?
A cookie.
Well, that's good enough for me. All right, we have to talk City United because this was also an incredible game. I think just everybody was on the edge of their seats probably the entire second half as well. City comes out with a 1-0 victory due to the one and only crowned Caroline Weir, who seems to only be able to score worldies. I don't know if she knows how to score any other type of goal.
I heard her interview afterwards and she just said, I practice those when I'm in training. I was like, but everyone practices those when they're training. Millie Bright practices those when she's in training, but you can do it. At every Manchester derby, you do the same thing.
That was fun to see the side by side. Last year, she scored basically the exact same goal in the Manchester derby.
The woman is
So she
unreal.
scores the winning goal. Caroline Weir, having come off the bench for City, scores the winning goal. Let's break this down. First of all, for City, what did you see them do well? Why did they end up taking this game?
I think that having Lucy Bronze and Ellie Roebuck back in the team has made the world of difference.
I'm glad that you added Ellie Roebuck to that. I really thought your answer was about to be, I think it's because of Lucy Bronze.
No, that's it. Lucy Bronze. End of series. End of episode. Thank you. Good night. Mic drop.
Done.
I feel like the elements that have been missing have been like those anchors in the team. Like it's the little tiny nuanced things that you see when you're watching the game. Like I guess from a bird's eye view, is that when they're in possession, the positions that like Ellie Roebuck's taking up are kind of on the edge of the area. She's really good with her feet and she's able to sort of switch the play onto the other side. And Manchester City continued playing in a style when they didn't have these players because they were injured and they weren't able to maintain like the level of confidence on the ball. The goalkeeper maybe didn't have the same sort of footwork that like Ellie Roebuck has.
I mean, to call that out specifically with a play, like Ellie Roebuck saved the game from being tied. Martha Thomas had a straight up breakaway, broke through the two back center defenders. And if it wasn't for the experience of Ellie Roebuck, this game would have ended 1-1.
She was off her line for most of the game, sat outside of the area. And so when that moment came and the ball sort of went through the back line of Manchester City, it was one of the only times that they broke through. Ellie was so fast to it. I almost didn't even, my heart didn't even like beat any faster because I could just see that Ellie was so well positioned for it and that she's so good with her feet. Like she is up there as one of the best goalkeepers with her feet, distribution wise, but also just making those short passes with confidence. She also is willing to allow strikers to like run her down and she doesn't feel nervous. Whereas you saw a bit with Taib that she would just launch the ball like shit, just like get rid of it as soon as it came to her. There was just a fear about Manchester City when Ellie was gone. And so you just saw the sort of confidence and moving forwards with Park on the right and Hemp on the left, they're becoming a right little unit, them two. They're almost carbon copies of each other in many ways.
Park on the right, as the addition to Hemp on the left, is so dangerous. I look at City and to me, they've gotten all their starters back, right? Lucy Bronze has been back for a couple weeks. Ellie Roebuck did just come back, but they're still inconsistent week to week. Even since they've gotten their starters back, they're still inconsistent. Yes, they tied Chelsea, or I'm sorry, they lost to Chelsea only 1-0, but that scoreline should have been way different. They played with no energy whatsoever in that game. And then they come out here and they look like they're, a top 3 team. They're still so inconsistent from week to week. Why? Like, is it really, can we just really just boil it down to Gareth Taylor?
Yeah, for me, I just think sometimes they're really unadaptable. They like stick to the same way, the same methods. We've just come off the back of a conversation, you and I, talking about Arsenal and how they decided to put Viv into a centre attacking midfield position. That is nuts. And so you look at this City team when Lucy Bronze wasn't there, Steph Horton wasn't there, the list goes on, Ellie Roebuck wasn't there, and they still played. They just put like Jill Scott at centre back. They're so unadaptable. They're so unwilling to sort of flex around the players that they've got in front of them. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, always going back to the games whilst those players were injured. But you go up against Real Madrid, you know that if you've got a strong attack, i.e. Bunny Shaw and Ellen White, maybe working together, that you're going to be able to have opportunities where you're going to get through the line of play. But it was easy. Babette Peter was just able to sort of scoop the ball away because they had one striker out front. And you just think unadaptable, unwilling to adapt. Whereas Arsenal, if they went up against Barcelona in like 2 weeks' time, or Chelsea, I think that they go, we know what we're coming up against. Here's what we're going to do to combat that. Here's what we're going to do differently. And I just think Manchester City maybe, I still don't think that it's the right combination, Gareth Taylor and that group of players, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned Jess Park. She's playing absolutely amazing. And maybe at the expense of playing time for some other people like the one and only Caroline Weir, who was frankly, one of City's top players last year, and now has been getting sub minutes. Particularly in this game, there was a big conversation around how Caroline Weir didn't get the starting role. She comes off the bench with 10 minutes left in the game. She hits that worldie. They win the game. Obviously, this can be spun many different ways, but for you, should she have started?
It's funny because I got sent the lineup at like a couple of hours before kickoff and wasn't allowed to say anything. And all of us were in a WhatsApp group like arguing about it. Like, how is she starting ahead of Lasada? Like, I couldn't work out why she wasn't in that role. Then 3 minutes in, Lasada gets a volleyed shot on the edge of the area, and it goes over and it hits the roof of the net. And I said on air, I wonder if that had been Caroline Weir, would it have been any different? And we were all kind of laughing about it, but I do feel like she just really turns up at those big moments. Personally,
big time.
One side of me goes sort of devil's advocate. One side of me goes, yeah, 100%. Caroline Weir starts at the Derby like until she's 150 years old. And then the other side of me says, super sub, came on, had all the energy. Katie Zellum was weak, but also played like 70, 80 minutes. So you bring on this fresh player who you know brings it in the Derby, and you're thinking, would she have had that shot or been able to get that shot if Katie Zellum hadn't been like, oh my God, just get to the finish line? Yeah, I'm kind of, devil on one shoulder, angel on the other with that one.
I mean, it's the same for Gareth Taylor. He would have gotten crap if Caroline Weir hadn't scored that goal, saying she should have been in all game, but she scored. Now he looks like brilliant, like a genius, because he brings her on and she changes the game. Case in point, it's all over. I love watching United, and I think that Mark Skinner has done a brilliant job of building on top of what Casey Stoney started. I really like, and mainly because he's taken it and he's adapted it into his system, but he hasn't changed the core of how the team really plays. Look, City won this game, and I think deservedly so, but to me, this was a pretty even match. Like, United had a rough start, but dominated most of the first half, absolutely dominated it. And then they came out and City got control, got possession, dominated the second half. And that's where I think United started to go downhill because they were defending. And when they were defending, they were chasing, getting tired. And that's what makes it harder to keep possession. And I think that really was their detriment, was the defensive side of the ball. Whether that's, and I don't mean the back line, I just mean defense as a full 11. And that doesn't surprise me that much. Mark Skinner is definitely a more offensive-oriented coach, and that's fine, but this is definitely one of those games where the defensive end of the ball and not being able to chase down that ball quick enough, get control, and possess again, I think really, really hurt them. Let's go. Sing it with me, Helen. Around the world.
This is so bad.
That was awful.
That was so bad. I literally want to cry. I'm going to put the phone down.
I just feel like I have to apologize to everybody who had to just listen to that.
Oh, God. That killed me.
We're going to head over to Australia, to the land down under first. Sydney sit atop the A-League, 4 points ahead of second place Melbourne City. The two will face off next weekend in a match that will have a huge impact on the top of the table. Some teams will be missing players from New Zealand and other countries who will be participating in She Believes and the Arnold Cark Cup.
In Spain, Ushuaia of Barcelona has scored 19 goals in 16 matches. She's ridiculous. That is wild for any player. But to put that in perspective, Sam Kerr has scored 9 goals in 13 games this season, and no one is denying that Sam Kerr is legendary status.
Legendary.
Barcelona sit, of course, at number 1 and played second place Sociedad last week, and they took them down 9-1, showing just how dominant they are. And in case we needed a reminder of that, Sociedad then went on to lose to 7th place Levante in the last week, a 2-game skid that has now seen them sit only 1 point above 3rd place Grandia Tenerife.
Over to Mexico. This table is always on fire, as we know. 1st and 4th place are separated by only 2 points with many matches left to play. This league continues to be competitive. Because the majority of athletes in La Liga MX are from Mexico, we can also see that this will help grow the game, and we will see that impact in their international squad.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to totalfootballanalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO 10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to totalfootballanalysis.com and type WOSO 10 at checkout.
So we have an international break coming up.
Whoop, whoop.
Of course, it's our favourite She Believes Cup. God, my only memory of England winning anything. And also the Arnold Cark Cup, which, by the way, I know that I've said it before, but I'm so excited about because for anyone living outside of England, they've got 3 host stadiums and they're so well spread across the actual UK. So one's at the north, one's right at the southeast, and one's in the middle. And considering the Euros is like Manchester and below, I am so down for that. Thank you, Arnold Clark. I'll buy all my cars from you forevermore.
I didn't know that was a car
They are
manufacturer.
a car company.
That makes a lot more sense. I was reading and I was like, why is it called that? I'll also say, while we're all cheery for Arnold Cark Cup, I'm like pretty jealous of the competition level here. This has much better, I'm just going to say it, this has much better competition levels than She Believes. And I'm sad about it, but that's what happened. You guys stole all of our competitive international teams that we wanted to play against.
I think it's that like Europe is just like a hop, skip, and a jump for you know 3 out of those 4 clubs.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, we were screwed the moment you decided to throw the same kind of tournament. Nobody wanted to travel all the way over here. So for anybody who doesn't know, Arnold Cark Cup has Germany, Spain, Canada, and of course England. That's going to be really, really fun.
So looking forward to it. And all I know from a fan perspective of like a lot of my friends who are going to it is they've got a few back-to-backs. And so it's like 2 games in one day of like mega teams. And that's just awesome. It's just awesome. And I'm so glad they're doing it in places like Middlesbrough, in like the Riverside Stadium, because that's somewhere where it's on the peripheries of like really big footballing areas like Sunderland and Newcastle and York and Leeds. So it just gives access to women's football fans from all over the UK. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
And for all of our US listeners, I'm going to find out how we can watch that and post it. And hopefully the times won't be too odd. We've also got She Believes over here. That starts Thursday. We've got a full She Believes preview on our Patreon. Head on over there. Check that out. It's going to be fun. Games kick off. Iceland versus New Zealand and US versus Czech Republic. I get really defensive about the U.S. national team. So part of me wants to be like, no, this is going to be a fun and competitive tournament. You know what? We talk about it on the Patreon. So head on over there and listen.
Stop being lazy, stupid idiots.
It's only £2 a month. So head on over there. All right. We got to talk about Arnold Cark Cup. Not really about the games, not really about Germany, Spain, or Canada, really. We have to talk about the Lioness Squad announcement because I have thoughts on it. You have thoughts on it. Let's go. Bring it on.
Anybody who kind of listens back to my previous podcast chats will be like, what's happened to Helen? She's had some sort of weird transformation.
It's funny because that was going to be my argument against you, but I'm happy you brought that up.
Oh, so no, I definitely have. I just feel like I'm in a bit of a different like thought process when it comes to these things. And like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, it all started with a conversation I had with Karen Bardley, ex-England #1. She was saying to me, like, she from nowhere, like, not that I asked the question, she said, the best person at camp, every tournament we've been to over the last decade is Jill Scott. And I was like, right, I could have guessed that. And essentially, we were just talking about how a lot of media's attention and focus and all that stuff is on the 90 minutes and what people bring to the 90 minutes. But often the 90 minutes is the same 13, 14 players rotated. It's the same goalkeeper usually, unless someone gets injured. And when you go into a major tournament, which we are, the Euros is crucial to England's progression. Like, you want to be going into that tournament with whoever you're taking into this little practice tournament at the Arnold Cark Cup. So when I saw it initially, I was like, Jill Scott, I'm so glad, because Jill Scott is like the nicest, best person ever in the whole world, and I just adore her. But also, she's one of the only people with like 100+ caps. Like, she's in the squad right now. She's one of the only people with like the level of experience and coming off the back of the 2019 Women's World Cup. she's one of the only people who, after a loss, will be like the person that makes everybody laugh in the dressing room. And so, like, it was Jill Scott that we got into the debate about, you and I, but I feel the same
Yeah.
across the board. I
Well,
just kind of trust
as a
in it.
larger, as like a microcosm of the larger thing that we were talking about, which I was saying, this can't be the squad. Like, how in the world can you go into Arnold Cark, a tournament that doesn't mean anything, and make the same call-ups? And this is funny to me because I think about a year ago, you and I were having the exact same discussion about the U.S. women's national team, but flipped. So maybe we're both just very defensive of our
How did I know
squads.
this would be raised? You took to the two tournaments in preparation for big tournaments, regardless of even if there was a big tournament coming up. Players that literally had played 2 or 3 games, taken time off, were not producing at all. We're talking about Jill Scott. She assisted at the weekend for Aston Villa. She played majority of Man City's season this year in midfield and as centre back and at right back and at left back. She's played minutes this year.
Will it help you if I say that I think she's a lovely person? I think she's a lovely person. I think she's a fine soccer player right now. And I don't like that this has become just about Jill Scott. Like, we've talked about Jill Scott. We've talked about Demi Stokes. There's a bunch of other players, and I don't have the roster in front of me, but I think that this is just a larger thing. And it really is the same overall issue of the U.S. having to bring in young players that Lionesses have to as well. And I understand that this is a lead up to the Euros. I understand that that's important. However, there's, for the next 2 years, always going to be an important tournament. This is kind of your one last shot to bring in some players and see how they fare. If you drop 3-4 players from the squad and bring in 3-4 new ones, that's a great way to bring in new talent and also not really rock the boat with your starting 11. So why would you not?
Because you cannot lose someone like Jill Scott from this squad.
But you're going to at some point. So find somebody else who can fill that void too. You know?
Who fills Jill Scott's void? The woman is almost 6 foot.
Who fills Megan Rapinoe's void? Who fills Abby Wambach's void? You know, like, it's gonna happen and somebody's gonna step into it.
Oh my God, you're comparing Megan Rapinoe in that US Women's National Team setup with the players that you had coming through to Jill Scott in terms of who she is as a personality in that squad. She is
in terms of the rock and the leader that she is on the team.
I mean,
I don't mean that they're like mere images of each other. I just mean, like, you're talking about intangibles. I'm talking about intangibles. That's all I mean. I'm just going to throw out 3 players who I think could have stood to be on this roster, maybe.
For who? You got to replace them.
No, I'm not looking at the roster. I can't replace them.
You can't. That's a cop-out, that.
I'm just going to say 3 players. I think Sigsworth deserves to be somewhere in this roster. I think she's played her way in this year.
For who?
Nikita Paris, hands down. Nikita Paris has not had a good year.
Okay.
I don't think Nikita Paris has played her way into this roster. Take somebody who's played well from some team that isn't United, City, Arsenal, or Chelsea. There are tons of players who are strong enough to play for the senior squad who don't play for one of those 4 teams. And frankly, Nikita Paris hasn't played her way onto this roster. I think Neville from Tottenham really deserved to be in this roster. I think she's played her way in. Tottenham is sitting at 3rd in the WSL right now. How is there nobody from that squad? Let me just also say, you may agree with this. I know nobody in the WSL really watched, in England really watched Racing Louisville. What happened to Ebony Salmon? You know? Give her a chance too.
It's so difficult because when you actually look across the squad and we talk about youth and experience, we haven't got much experience really in there. We've got a lot of youth, like players like Leah Williamson didn't really get going in the 2019 and is now seen as, like, you know, a heavyweight WSL player. Lotte Wubben-Moy, I wouldn't have known her name a year and a half ago in the World Cup, and now she's the starting centre back for Arsenal. Like, the only there's not much experience going. Jordan Nobbs wasn't at the 2019 World Cup. Jill Scott is by far and away the most experienced player going into this mini tournament. And to be honest, she is doing it again for Aston Villa. She's an amazing personality to have at camp. And they've got to be in the same sort of room with each other consistently for weeks at a time. The person for me, and everybody's moaning about her today, the person for me that stands out because we haven't got as many midfielders going is Katie Zalem. Manchester United captain. That is somebody that it does confuse me why, but also it confuses me why Mark Skinner starts her ahead of, say, Hayley Ladd or ahead of Lucy Staniforth. And Lucy Staniforth is a more experienced England player as well. But talking about the England squad, Katie Zalem's the one player that I look at, I go, I'm not sure what warrants that. But then you look and you're like, Fran Kirby, Jordan Nobbs, Georgia Stanwyck, Kira Walsh. It's between those four who's going to be the starting three. And the person being subbed on in midfield at the 78th minute is going to be the fourth person of those three people. So I don't know. I'm with you to a certain extent of bringing in fresh blood, but then I look at the squad, I'm like, where's the experience?
I mean, I think that's what's beautiful about what England has coming up is because, yes, these players are young, but they've got a lot of experience under their belt. Like Leah Williamson, she's young, but she is captain material. Same with Millie Bright. Like, yes, they're young, but they don't need that much veteran presence. They kind of have it on lock.
The one final point I want to make, because I agree with you, and I have been the biggest fan of this person. Ashley Neville has had the season of her life.
Thank you. Did I just win this argument? Did I just win?
No, because so she plays fullback.
I think I did.
Okay, 2 points.
Mike, don't cut the part where I brought that up first, because I brought that up first, just so everybody
Ashley
knows.
Neville has had the season of her life. We need fullbacks.
Thank you.
We need quality fullbacks in the England squad. Obviously, Rachel Daly's really versatile, and that's a real benefit to us because she can play up front and she can play right back, left back, and probably anywhere, to be honest, because she's so talented. But Ashley Neville has had an absolute screamer. And I spoke in the last time I came onto the show about how they basically everything, if she decides to push up, they become three at the back. If she stays back, they're back at the four. She kind of dictates that Spurs team. And
that's why I said I put her on the roster for either a defender or a midfielder.
My counter-attack is, she's 28. She's not a spring chicken anymore. She's been in this game for a long time, but she's not got any England caps. So it'd be like a last.
Who cares?
And just because if you're going to bring an older player into the mix from scratch,
I'm not ageist and biased like that. I'm not ageist and biased like that. You know what? Everybody hits their prime at a different time.
Yeah, I love that.
I like to think I'm hitting my prime right now. I just turned 30, and my prime's not even there. So if she's hitting her prime at 38,
prime at a different time. Get the squad roster up. It'll be fine.
All right. With that, I think we have to end it there before we talk for another 40 minutes about each individual player. But I'll call you later, and we can keep going. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Go ahead, check out our Patreon. Like I mentioned, we have a full She Believes Cup preview. That starts on Thursday, so go ahead and listen to that on the Patreon. Patreon/The WOSO Show. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks so much for having me on, man. I've really loved it.
And you'll be back soon. All right, thank you, everybody, for the Women's Soccer Show. I've been Sarah.
I've been Helen.
Bye.
Bye.